And that was just a new thing that was emerging then. Not many people knew what podcast was even. And one thing about new construction, when you sell new construction, you tend to drive a lot from one model home to the other. One of the biggest things that happened to me was immigrating to America from Russia. So when I was 13 years old,
Hello, welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. This is Nick Shah. I'm very excited about who we are going to learn from today. She is a trailblazer. She has achieved a lot of things in life. Has come from literal hunger and scarcity to become one of the most influential people in the real estate world. Today we're going to learn from Anya Chrisanthon. Anya, how's it going?
Good, Nick. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me on.
Likewise, I'm very excited to have you on. We had a chance to look at your background in some detail. So, very excited to learn more from you today, Anya. But before we get into all that, people really want to understand what you are focused on. How do you introduce yourself these days?
Sure. So I am the Chief Communications Officer at Anewgo. At Anewgo, we partner with home builders to help them provide amazing online customer journeys for their buyers. And we do that by providing amazing visualizations, interactive design tools, all the way to transaction online to make those home journeys not only easy, but also seamless. And as the Chief Communications Officer, I drive the brand and the voice of Anewgo. So I am the voice of Anewgo and the face of Anewgo. I'm hoping to spread the message of how you can sell homes the easier way instead of the hard way to home builders.
Wow. So you're the voice and the face of Anewgo, and your formal title is the Chief Communication Officer. And your main goal is helping home builders sell homes very easily and seamlessly to buyers. And for buyers, you have visualizations, design tools, online home buying process to make the home buying journey as easy as possible. Before we get into that, people really want to understand, Anya, how you're like. So what spirit, animal, or bird best describes your own personal operating philosophy in life?
Oh gosh, if I had to pick a spirit animal, I actually have a t-shirt that says Khaleesi is my spirit animal. If you guys watch Game of Thrones, everybody knows Khaleesi, of course. So I always relate to her in life and in work. I think she is, undermined oftentimes. So my, thing is, if you undermine me, this is going to be fun for me. So people certainly undermined me in my career before, especially as I was getting started. But I've always had the drive, the vision, just like Khaleesi, to go forward, and nothing stops her in her way. And in her way, sometimes she can be a little righteous, right? Makes mistakes, falls on her face many times, but she ends up, taking herself up and going along. And, if you have 3 dragons, hey, that's something that I wish I had 3 dragons by my side.
I love that. So seems like you have this underdog mindset where you come from this land very far away. Everyone doubted you. You did not have the best origin story, but you have the drive and the vision. And the more they undermine you, the stronger and the more laser focused you become. And you also have this moral righteous compass where, you know where you're going, the path getting there. You could make mistakes, but you will fail. You learn forward, you grow. And in the end, you will win the Iron Throne.
That's right. It's for the taking.
So now if we look back at your career trajectory so far, and we'll get into that in more detail, but if you had to summarize everything with a number, a metric, what metric do you feel summarizes your career trajectory so far cumulatively?
I would probably say that I've managed to make myself the most known name in home building industry, specifically as it relates to speaking on the topics of technology. Home builders trust my opinion when I speak about technology. I've been passionate about this topic for a long time. And my goal is to really make sure that home builders know what's available out there, that they're embracing technology to make the sales process much easier for themselves and for their customers. We're trying to make that customer journey easy breezy so that when somebody buys a new home, they're not even considering a used home. It's always new construction.
That's amazing. And if you had to put a metric on home builders and how many home builders you've helped, and through them, what is the volume of construction pipeline you will influence? And you have to put a very conservative low end number. What would you say that is?
Oh gosh, putting me on the spot here. So Anewgo has had the privilege of working with hundreds of home builders. I mean, we work probably with about 500 home builders per year. So we've helped a lot of home builders. And when it comes to construction number, it's got to be over 100 million plus, probably multiple times over. It's been our privilege and a pleasure to work with some of America's best home builders, and most of them stay with us. I mean, our oldest client is still with us from the day we started this company. And so it's a great testimonial to us and what we're doing here at Anewgo.
Absolutely. And sorry for putting it on the spot. We're not going to delicious number, but helping hundreds of home builders build hundreds of millions of dollars of homes is a remarkable life achievement. I'm sure you're very proud of where you are at right now. But let's go back to zero, when the number was zero, when your achievements were zero. What has been the broad trajectory of your life that has helped you arrive here to?
So I think there's definitely been multiple points where how I ended up where I am today. I would say one of the biggest things that happened to me was immigrating to America from Russia. So when I was 13 years old, my parents immigrated to the States. And obviously that's changed the trajectory of my life. And that experience, although was very dramatic at first, the first year, was not an easy year by any means. But it also made me who I am in a big way because it taught me perseverance. It taught me overcoming obstacles. It taught me being uncomfortable, being comfortable, because I was uncomfortable every single day for that first year, for sure. It taught me that there is a light at the end of the tunnel sometimes where you don't see the light. It's probably going to happen, and that sometimes the best things are the hardest to get, and that's something you have to work towards. And then, of course, the second pivot was when I left the finance industry and I got into home building in 2013. And that started my trajectory in home building industry. And that's where I really fell in love with this industry. And I see myself in this industry as probably lifelong. Just the relationships that we have in this industry, we like to think that we're very special from other industries. Some of my closest friends are my work colleagues that I've made throughout the years, and I'm very proud to be in an industry where we literally change. We're influencing where people live, how people live. When you call something home, it's a sacred place, all right? So we are helping home builders build that special sacred place. And I'm very proud to be a part of that journey.
Wow, very inspiring. So it seems like there were two major inflection points in your life. One was when you were 13 and one was in 2013 when you transitioned from finance to home building. Let's talk about the first part of the journey and what led before that. So how was it like being born and raised in Russia? And then how was it like after that, first 13 years of your life to suddenly be put in this dramatically new system surrounded by probably middle school kids who were a little bit mean to you?
So I actually ended up going in high school. So I turned 14 as I was going in, and I was a class ahead. We skipped some grades in Russia. So I ended up in 10th grade when I was going in. Growing up in Russia, I had a pretty quote unquote privileged life, I guess you could say, compared to, Russian standards. My father was a scientist. So we always had food on the table until we didn't, until the Soviet Union collapsed. And suddenly, my father had to travel abroad to find jobs. And then he ended up permanently moving to the United States. But during that time, it was a really challenging time because we didn't have any food to eat. Literally, we had to wait in line with a coupon in hand to get bread. So I know literally what it's like to be hungry. Um, to wait in line for a loaf of bread, or to be excited to eat chicken because it's somebody's birthday, it's a special occasion. So I don't take anything I have for granted. I think all things are very relative, and it takes a change of perspective. And I also think we never know what somebody else is coming from, and you can never judge somebody until you're in that position, because you really don't know what you would do in that position. But I think that experience also gave me ability to take on more risk, because I know that I don't need that much to survive on, to live on, to thrive. So I'm very comfortable taking risks because of that experience. But yeah, moving to America at 13, 14 years old, it certainly is already a very challenging age. As a teenager, it's, you hate your parents and you love your friends, and they, take you away from everything you know and throw you into American high school. So yeah, I often like to say that that first year felt like jumping into an ice cold pool, and it's just a complete shock to your system. I spoke very limited English. I studied English in school in Russia, but it was like British English, so the accent was so different. I was afraid to say what I knew, and it was very basic conversational English, like, "Hey, where's the library?" Not the stuff that you actually need to survive in American high school. But luckily, at that age, we're also very adaptable as humans. And I was able to be pretty fluent within that first year. I met some friends, and I started running on a track and field team, cross country team. So I've joined a lot of different activities and really, really embraced the lifestyle and embraced people around me. And I think that was the best way to learn the language and the culture, is just a total submersion.
Wow, very inspiring, and it gave me goosebumps. So, it seems like life journey started with the family having access to means because your father was a scientist, and because of this microeconomic event of Soviet Union collapsing, all of that was suddenly taken away from you, and you saw a massive downfall very early in the life, where even arranging food on the table was difficult. And that, so how did that experience impact your career journey in the future down the line?
So again, I think it allows me to take on more risks, because I know that I don't need that much to survive on. And I am also very grateful for America, because I see what it was like in Russia, and all the, the bureaucracy. And if you want something, you have to bribe somebody, and, it's in a never ending process. And you almost live in this fear that if you have a different opinion, if you don't conform, then, your whole life could be taken away from you. I mean, honestly, I would be terrified of police in Russia, especially during that challenging time when, if you were being robbed and you called the police, they would probably rob you the second time after that. So I'm very grateful for America and all the opportunities that I have here. And I really do believe that it is one of the few places on earth is where, if you have a great idea, you can get, you can achieve anything you want. Like, your only limitation is really you. Nothing stands in your way except for you.
Couldn't agree more. And coming from an immigrant myself, who was also brought up in dirt poor conditions, came to this country, and most people think people in India don't speak English, but English is the national language of India. We just don't speak the slang accent that locals speak here. So same way, like jumping in like you said, it's like jumping in a cold tub. Instantly, it shocks your system. And that's why I love immigrants. I believe in immigrants. Most immigrants here, legal immigrants, are here to build a name for themselves. If they can create employment, create jobs. And like you said, when we come from nothing, we are not afraid of anything because we know we can always go back to the worst possible state in our lives and still survive. We are not over entitled and that, but we are also aggressively ambitious. And this country provides meritocratic base where if you have a great idea, like you said, but you also work hard, you can achieve your goals. So very inspiring. Seems like amazing high school trajectory where you eventually ended up becoming a cross country athlete. You went to study history undergrad. And then immediately after that, you worked in finance for 8 years. So, what were the highs and lows of working at Vanguard, and how did that influence your transition to the home building industry at the end of the period?
Sure. So I was fortunate to get a job at Vanguard right after I graduated. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with myself. I got a degree in history and I wanted to essentially become a school teacher, but then I found out how much money they made. So I was like, maybe not. So, long story short, I ended up at Vanguard and they had a great program for new hires. And so I learned all about financial markets. I learned everything about finance that I needed to learn. So that was amazing. I was able to, take all the tests, the Series 7, etc., and become certified and all the things that I needed to in order to do this job and know what I was talking about. I was never really passionate about finance, but I did manage to get into, from starting to at the very bottom, answering calls from investors to then I ended up working as a retirement education specialist where I got to travel all around the United States, visiting different companies that have their retirement plans at Vanguard. And I was educating the employees on the benefits of 401k and investing and how to invest their money and how much money they should be saving in order to achieve secure and have a happy retirement. So I really loved that job. Early in my 20s, I got to travel all around the United States. I got to develop my public speaking skills, stand in front of different groups. I was kind of like a chameleon. One day I'd be in, coal mines of West Virginia presenting to literally guys covered in, black suit, just between their shifts, to then next week standing in a swanky office in New York City presenting to a lawyer. So it allowed me to kind of shift my presentation, the way I was speaking to people so that they could relate to me, and I made it a really easy way for them to understand. It's not complicated. It's not rocket science. If I could do it, anybody could do it. So I really enjoyed that. Then fast forward to, getting married and becoming a mother. And suddenly I had to take an office job at Vanguard. I was back to the office. I had 2 young twins at home, so I couldn't travel anymore. And so at that point, I was selling exchange traded funds to financial planners. And honestly, I hated that job. Number one, I hated to be in the office, sitting in the cubicle, dialing all day long, getting hung up on. I still have nightmares about that job, honestly. And so one day I was complaining to a friend of mine and I said, oh my gosh, I just am not cut out for this. I am not made for the office. I'm not made, to be talking to people on the phone all day. There's got to be something better than this. And she worked in home building industry, and she said, you know what, you'd be perfect for new home sales. And so the rest is history.
Wow. Wow. So from the depths of some of the worst professional experience you had in life after being a mom with twins and having to leave them and go to the office and do cold calling, which clearly did not suit your personality and your dreams and your goals. From the depths of that, you found a phoenix that rose up the ashes and you found your love in the home building industry.
Yes, it was very fortunate. I jumped right in, embraced it with my open heart. I got to be my own boss. I had the beautiful model home that I got to come home to every day and sit in the model home, waiting for potential buyers to come in and doing whatever I could to attract the potential buyers, advertising. So it taught me a lot about marketing then, sales. I really never considered myself salesperson, and I got very limited training on sales at Vanguard, which you would think before you're dialing, they would give you better training there. But I was very fortunate that the company that I joined at the time, which was Ryan Homes, which is part of NVR, one of the largest home builders in America, they had an excellent program. And so I got to actually be a rookie of the year my first year when I started selling new construction.
And was what portion of the work ethic you learned from finance was critical in helping you succeed so widely, so quickly in the home building industry?
So I think one thing I will say, Vanguard is not like other financial companies. You know, when you think about financial institutions, you really usually typically think corruption, unethical, etc., and all the headlines that we typically read. That was not the case at Vanguard. Vanguard's their motto is always do the right thing. They're owned by the investors, and they're always doing the right thing for the investors, bringing low cost investing to everybody. So I definitely took on those values, and I always made sure that I did the right thing by my buyers. And again, with the excellent training that I got from Ryan Homes, I was able to, find the right fit, uncover obstacles to getting there, but also weave, natural urgency into the process so that they said, yes, we want to buy this house with you.
Wow, amazing. And seems like, Ryan Homes, which was then called NBR, again, they're a major player in the space. I'm looking at their website now, and they've helped over 500,000 homeowners buy a home. And then you kept working in the construction industry at Rockwell for about a year and launched your own company back then. So how was it like going from, after shifting from finance to construction to somewhere in 2018, where you started working on your own thesis, your own mindset, your own roadmap?
So, it wasn't like one day I just woke up and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Right around 2017, 2018, I got interested in podcasts. And that was just a new thing that was emerging then. Not many people knew what podcast was even. And one thing about new construction, when you sell new construction, you tend to drive a lot from one model home to the other. And sometimes the drive can be an hour. So I would be spending a lot of time on the road. And so when I discovered podcasting, I was hooked, and I really embraced listening to marketing podcasts because I wanted to learn as much as possible about marketing and what I could do better to become a better salesperson. But one day I was like, you know what would be really awesome is to listen to new construction sales podcasts so that I could learn how to sell new construction better, learn all the tips and tricks. And I couldn't find anything that was available at that time. The only podcasts on real estate were just general real estate. And even worse, they were all men podcasts. No offense to you guys. You're on the wrong world for now. But, if you look at real estate specifically, most of the salespeople are females. And so I was like, well, something's wrong here. And so I was like, okay, well, if there's not a podcast out there, we gotta get it out there. So in 2018, I did start my own podcast. I started off blogging first on my website. And really, I was just sharing best practices, what was working for me when it comes to prospecting, follow-up, and just really marketing and sales for new construction. So my original podcast was called New Construction Marketing Podcast. And that really, was that first step. I remember it took me a while to publish my first podcast because I was so nervous. I was like, who's going to listen to this? Like, who am I? And, all the thoughts you have that go through your mind when you first do something that's so public facing. And also it was so new back then. I didn't know anyone else who had a podcast. Now everybody has a podcast. So that was kind of like the beginning of it. And then as I started to slowly gain popularity and notoriety in new construction space because of my podcast, I was traveling to all the conferences where I could meet interesting people and tell my listeners about all these events happening in the industry and meet guest speakers for my podcast and make connections. And as I was going on, more and more home builders started to reach out to me and say, hey, Anya, can you do our marketing. We would like you to do marketing. And as I was speaking on stages at that point on marketing topics for new construction, it made sense that I started to kind of branch out. So there was a kind of a pivotal moment where I was like, okay, do I keep going with selling real estate, or do I do this new thing by myself and bet on myself? And so it was kind of like a combination of pandemic hitting, where I was like, I don't know if, real estate's going to be the it thing. I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. So I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, now is the time. I don't have to leave my home to do this. So the pandemic doesn't affect me. And I can give my clients what they want. They're asking me for it. So that's how I got started. I got started with a few smaller clients, and I did their marketing. And then eventually I came over to Anewgo. So that's my journey into the marketing arm of new construction side.
Wow, what a journey from being your life torn apart by a massive macroeconomic collapse of the Soviet Union to, struggling to integrate into high school culture, to become a cross-country runner, to joining finance, become really good at finance, joining the home building industry, and calling your shot at the intersection of marketing and new construction and becoming a superstar there. And then finally becoming a chief communications officer at Anewgo, where you're influencing hundreds of home builders, sell hundreds of millions of dollars of pipeline every year. It sounds like a dream trajectory. For anybody listening to this trajectory, they might feel like it sounds like your life was stacked up for you, but it was not always like that, right? So how did you deal with a phase in your life where you couldn't see the light at the end of the?
So I would say it definitely was not stacked up, by any means. I would say two things. I think if you're like, I want something, but I'm not sure how to, you have this big dream. I would say number one thing is consistency. Just like with my podcast, I was consistent every week. I would publish an episode no matter what. If I didn't feel like it, feel like it. And now I follow the same concepts. I just take one small step forward towards that goal. So it's not like overnight you become a success, but I think it's really the consistency that gets you there eventually. And, I had a major step back, you would say. I was fired. When I went to, after Ryan Homes, I worked for a small builder, and it taught me a lot. I ran my own community. That's where I really got into the marketing, and I was, their best salesperson. And then I got fired. And, if you ever been fired, you know the feeling. I did all the things. I laid on the couch and, drank champagne and watched Game of Thrones and plotted my Arya Stark revenge, and sometimes you're like, where do I go from here? And especially at that time, they owed me a lot of money. Thing new construction is that you get paid half when you sell, and you get other half when you settle. So if you don't settle, you're not getting the money. So it was a lot of money that I didn't get, that I was counting on and didn't get to take. So it was really rough period of my life. You feel betrayal, you feel also for me, I was the breadwinner in my family in many ways, and so suddenly that rug was pulled from underneath me. And so you feel like, what's my value if I'm not the breadwinner anymore, if I'm not bringing this money in? Am I useful? Am I helpful? All the things go through your mind, and it's tough. I mean, I think there's nothing, a few things worse than being fired. But I also think that if I wasn't fired, maybe it would have taken me a lot longer to take that next leap of faith, because sometimes we need to be pushed out of the comfort zone in order to take that next leap. Because if you're super comfortable, if you're cushy and you're making the money, it's really difficult to say, like, you know what, hold the paycheck. Hold the 6-figure paycheck. Let me go and and take this no paying job to see to see if I could make it work. So looking back, it was a blessing in disguise for sure, and I'd like to think about it that way. I learned a lot from that experience, and I am grateful. I don't believe there are any coincidences in life. I really don't. So I think everything happens for a reason. Sometimes it's very hard to see what that reason is, but I truly believe that.
I love that. Wow, what a story. For someone who's listening to this, is feeling betrayed or depressed and sitting on their couch right now, what's your number one advice to them to go from where they are today to where they can be someday?
I would say be in the moment. Don't dismiss those feelings. Like when you're feeling down, you're feeling down. Like you need to give yourself the space to grieve and to go through all the emotions. Because if you just shove it down, it's gonna come out eventually. So, for me, it was champagne and watching Game of Thrones for about a week on my couch. Whatever it is for you, go for it. Just let it all out. Cry. Feel it in a moment. It sucks. Yeah, it sucks. But I think you also have to give yourself kind of like a time frame where I was like, okay, this week, that's what I'm doing. But next week is the new start. Next week is when I'm starting the new thing. And so you just got to give yourself that time so that you snap out of it and do something. It doesn't have to be anything monumental, but maybe start the new job search, update your resume, whatever it may be. Just start that next step once you're done with it.
Most people think of what you just said as work-life balance, but what it truly is work balance. Being a mom is a full-time job. Being a mom, dog parent is also a real job. And then obviously you have a very senior job at an important company. That's also a job. Yeah, some people think, oh, this is wow, you can balance life and work when you like. No, you're actually able to balance multiple jobs and work and executing and succeeding in all of them at the same time.
Well, I don't believe there is such thing as work-life balance I don't think there's a balance ever. I think you're normally you're either kicking butt at your career, but then you're something's got to get somewhere. So I think with my current setup, I am lucky that I am able to be very much a force of nature when it comes to my job. Again, I'm feeling pretty good about myself as a mother. Mom guilt is a real thing for sure. I know I could always be doing more, but I'm also realizing that unless I was a stay-at-home mother, there's no way that I'm going to be A+. And if I was stay-at-home mother, it probably wouldn't be A+, because that would just drive me crazy. I don't know how people do that. It's the hardest job in the world. I'll tell you that much. But something's always got to give. So I don't believe there's ever a balance, but it's kind of like a moving scale. I'm just very fortunate at the moment that mine seems to be in alignment where professionally and family-wise, I'm in a happy place. But, I'd love to spend more time with my girlfriends, which, I don't get to do that often. So tonight we're actually going out with my friends, but it's, there's never a balance, truly.
There's never a balance. There are always compromises to be made. So let's go to Anewgo. What are the problems that Anewgo solves for home builders, and how is it really good at solving?
Mm-hmm. So I think as a home builder, it's really challenging to figure out, okay, what do I need to sell the homes, right? The challenge of new construction is that it doesn't exist. When we're selling new construction, you're literally painting the picture of, oh, imagine this beautiful house with 4 or 5 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms, and the roof is going to be like this, and the siding is going to be like that. So most people have really hard time imagining what that looks like. So for a home builder, it's a big challenge to figure out, how do I paint that picture where my buyers have confidence to say, yes, I see what you're building and I want to move forward the deal. And that is the biggest challenge that we're trying to overcome for home builders, is to build certainty. And how do we build that certainty? We build that certainty by providing visualization, by showing the potential buyer as close as possible without having a physical model home, what their future home is going to look like. By giving the design tools to the buyer in order to be able to customize and personalize their dream home to see what that house is going to look like with different color siding, different color shutters, doors, roof shingles, on the interior, what the kitchen of their dreams is going to look like with that countertop and the pendant lights and the appliances and the flooring as it changes colors real time. So for most buyers, it's a lot easier to say yes if I see it. If I see it, I believe it, right? There's a saying, I won't believe it till I see it. It's for a reason. So we make it so that they can see it and they believe it. And then on top of that, we also provide them with the tools to be able to not only see what the final product is going to look like, but also see what it's going to cost. Because one of the uncertainties is the final price. You start with from 500s, and then when you end up, it's in the 700s. So a lot of the options that you're going to include in that home are not included. A lot of home builders don't want to disclose the price of those options because they don't want to, quote unquote, scare off potential buyers. So at Anewgo, we've always been proponents of being transparent with the buyers, showing the pricing. And so our tools allow home buyer not only to visualize the home, but also see how the different options will affect the final price in real time, and provide even a mortgage calculator so that $700,000 suddenly doesn't look so scary when it's broken down into a monthly payment. It suddenly becomes affordable, and it suddenly becomes within my monthly budget, and I can easily say yes to that. And we make it very easy for home builders, to get started. Because again, as a home builder, they're good at building homes. They're not technologists. And even for marketing people now, you have to be technologist with the marketing. If you can't do technology, it's very difficult to do marketing these days. So with the Anewgo products, one of the beauties is that we have an ecosystem, but you don't have to buy into the entire ecosystem. You can start with puzzle pieces, and you can build on those puzzle pieces over time so that it's not expensive to get started, but yet you are creating a complete ecosystem. All the pieces talk to each other so that the data transfers from one to the other. Nothing gets lost in translation. Everything talks to each other. And that's ripe for AI, right? As AI going to really change the way we do everything as far as marketing and sales. It's really important that we are preparing for that shift. And so with the Anewgo ecosystem, the way we are coding all of the pieces within that puzzle piece, you can be sure that you'll be ready for the future, yet it's really easy to get started.
Wow. Yeah. And seems like Anewgo is primarily solving the problem of visualizing the final product with transparent pricing and with a clear calculation of how much will it cost me every month to upgrade the kitchen or add a better counter or change the lights or whatever. So it seems like this problem is also real estate agents also try to solve the problem, and they try to market the property. Architecture firms also try to solve the problem. So there is some other version of solutions out there. What do you feel Anewgo does that separates it from 99% of the rest of the market?
What separates us from the other markets, so from our competitors, for example? So, of course, there are other visualization companies out there. One of the things that separates Anewgo from the rest is that we have a secret sauce, and our secret sauce is technology. Unlike most people think that Anewgo employs hundreds of rendering artists in China or somewhere, we don't, or in India, we don't. We actually have a technology that consists of having all the pieces of the home within that set of technology. So, for example, we have the swatches from all of the siding companies from North America. We have all the shingles, all the door samples, and the shutters. So when our customers come to us for a rendering, we're able to provide that rendering really quickly because it's all generated by our system. It's technologically generated. There's not an artist sitting there putting that together. Because it's all comes in pieces, each single piece is also coded with information that's necessary for AI to be able to read that information. So in the future, when AI is going to be scouring the internet to find that perfect home for you, after the home buyer designed that perfect home, AI is going to be able to take a look at it, read it, code it, so that AI understands it, not just the human eyes understand it, and bring it back in your search result when you say, I want a modern home with blue shingles and, whatever your needs are. And that's the biggest thing that separates us. Most other rendering companies use artists to design the renderings. And the downside with that is that it's a one-time rendering. You're not getting ready for the next evolution of sales and marketing, which is AI first.
That's incredible. Seems like your secret sauce is essentially you have the raw data of all the different modules in a home. So when you're visualizing it, you're visualizing it with as close to pinpoint accuracy as possible. And that will enable you to scale to an even bigger degree as you can ingest more data online through your AI software and attach it, to your own visualization product. That sounds like a very tempting company indeed. It sounds actually too good. So are there any risks of working with Anewgo?
So Anewgo is definitely very much, customer service first. Like if you talk to our builders who've been with us for years and years and years, they will always tell you that Anewgo makes you feel like you're the only customer for us. So we prioritize our customers, their needs, their wants, and we look out for their interests. So as far as data goes, the data is always theirs. So we don't own this data. That data is always the home builder's data. That's one thing, again, that I took from Vanguard, that I have to work for a company that is ethical. And, I know that we're always doing the right thing. We're not going to take your data and sell it back to you. Your data is your data. So I would say the only downside of the risk is that, you buy into an ecosystem with somebody else that's not ready for the future. I would say if you start in that path where you are buying, maybe one piece of software, but now you have to have, the ERP, the end system that talks to that. So now you have to invest more money with that company, and you kind of go down that rabbit hole. And I think the biggest risk for a home builder right now is choosing a wrong company, because if you align yourself with a company that is not able to take you into the future, you could be investing a lot of money and not be prepared for that next shift as we get ready for AI. So I'll say, to me, that is probably the biggest risk, is not working with Anewgo.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like in parallel to your helping Anewgo succeed, you also run a podcast called Anewgo of New Home Sales. You released about 123 episodes so far. What was your aha moment of scale in this journey?
So when I joined Anewgo as the chief brand officer, it was one of my missions is to make Anewgo brand a known brand. And so that was why it was a really perfect coming together between Anewgo and myself, because Anewgo had amazing technology. Our CEO, John Lee, is truly visionary. And I'd like to say he's always 5 steps ahead of everybody else in the home building industry. The reason why I joined Anewgo is because every time I talked to him, my mind was blown that, oh my God, really? That's what you're working on? This is what you're doing? And then next thing you know, he shows me exactly what that thing is. So he's visionary, but he's also executing on it, constantly innovating. And so I think his vision is just so much further than what most people are even able to comprehend. And the way he connects all those pieces and how it's all going to work together I was like, people have to know about this. And so what's the easiest way to take the tech talk and break it down is the podcast format, right? Like just like me when I was traveling from model to model, a lot of times our home building partners are in their truck. That's where they spend a lot of their time. Or sometimes they're sitting in the office, right? If it's a marketing professional. So they have the opportunity to listen to the podcast. We break it down. We make really complicated topics really easy to understand. And, that was one of my babies that I wanted to work on as soon as I joined Anewgo. And so, yeah, really proud. I think there's a lot of podcasts out there in real estate industry now, and specifically in home building industry, which is great. It's great for consumers because there's a lot more information out there. It's great for home builders because they are able to learn about marketing and sales and new construction. But I think what really separates our podcast is that we are technology first podcast. We're talking about different emerging technologies, whether it's for new home sales or marketing or in home building itself. Definitely proud of that one.
Absolutely. And I have a lot of guest recommendations for you, which we'll catch up offline. Talk about Anewgo. What do you see as the biggest challenges that you're facing in scaling your team or operations at Anewgo, or Anewgo overall in scaling team or operations to reach your aspirational goals over the next 12 months?
So we are a technology first company, and obviously we are competing with technology companies like Apple and Amazon. And so we have not taken any funding. We've all been homegrown, and which has its pluses and minuses. It allowed us to stay independent, but we also do have to be very smart with our resources, because with software, as you know, it's never ready. It's never finished. So we're constantly upgrading our existing software as well as coming out with new products that our home builders want to see. And so it's definitely a challenge to find the best people and to keep the best people. So I would say that is, I think just like everybody else right now, right? Like we're competing for a small pool of talent. We've been very fortunate to have a great CTO who is also visionary. We have a great team locally. We also have a small team in Czech Republic that are programmers. So it is always the pool of people. So that's everybody's challenge.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, that's something we can talk about offline as well. But what most people don't realize about Anewgo is it's a new and go. It's three separate words combined together. So do you know the story behind how your CEO, John Lee, or others named the company?
Yes. So John Lee got that name, I want to say in 2011, while our company was still called Rendering House. Rendering House was our original company name. When we first started, we were really focused on renderings because there was not much technology back then. So, but he always had the vision to grow into a technology company. And so he wanted to make a new go of buying, selling, new construction. And so that's why he went with Anewgo. Word new obviously represents the future, the new way of doing it. The go has the past, like what we learned from the past, the ego. So it kind of combines the old and the new to create a new go.
I love it.
Everybody makes a new go of it with us.
I love it. Anewgo. Well, for somebody, a builder listening to this that's really inspired by hearing this, wants to feel like, the only customer at the company, wants you to help them scale their home building sales processes and marketing processes, how should they reach out to you or your team?
So we're very easy to find. You can just go to anewgo.com. Again, it's anewgo.com. You'll find all of our offerings online. We also are very active on LinkedIn. So definitely follow us on LinkedIn, especially if you're curious about emerging technologies in home building, specifically as it relates to new home sales and marketing. So check us out there. And then we also have a Anewgo marketplace which is a combination of all of the home builders that we work with, the designable home collection. So it's kind of like the Zillow of new construction, where you can go and design a home of your dreams and find a home builder. We are growing that. And so you'll see that some areas are more populated versus others. Like, for example, we have a lot of home builders in southeast of the country in Texas, but when it comes to, the western part, we don't have as many. So we're not out there openly advertising Anewgo Marketplace currently. We are trying to build that up through partnerships with home builders. And as we have more home builders, more content, we're populating that automatically into Anewgo Marketplace so that consumers have an easier way of finding new construction and they can really design and personalize their dream homes online.
That sounds amazing. So now, Anya, I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions. So you've been in the home building industry since almost 11, 12 years now. What fact or random insight do you know about the industry that might surprise most listeners?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see here. Well, I don't know if it's surprising, but I think one of the advantages that I have is my knowledge of all the ins and outs of really being a salesperson on the ground and selling construction. Because, when you work in tech and you work in marketing, oftentimes technology companies, especially new technology companies joining our space, they often have these grand visions, but they have no idea what actually works in the real world. And so they have a hard time marketing and they have a hard time really taking root in this industry because they just don't understand all the basics of what it actually looks like when you're trying to sell a home that's not there. And so I think with my personal experience of working for home builders, being on the ground, going through all the challenges they go through, it gives me very intimate understanding of their pain points. And so it makes me a better marketing person because of that. And so when we develop our products and services, we also keep that in mind and really bring them back to, this is great, but does it actually work?
That makes sense. So basically what you're saying is building a home is a very difficult skill, but it's completely different from selling the home. And it's completely different skill set. And that's what you and Anewgo is really good at. Let's say Anya family office calls you and says they've had a liquidity event, they've invested in a bunch of asset classes already, but now they have $100 million allocated. How would you advise them?
Oh, shush. I am definitely a Vanguard person. So, I'm going to say, hey, it's best to diversify into index funds. But if you're looking to invest in real estate specifically, there's definitely a lot of really cool things that are happening right now in real estate that I think are going to be game changers in the coming years as we battle climate change. So I would say 3D printed technology is one of the most fascinating spaces in real estate right now. There's several companies that are doing that. Manufactured homes is also another great sector that I believe is going to be driving the future of new home building. Instead of building sticks on the ground, it's going to be all pre-manufactured in a factory, in a factory controlled environment, shipped on site and assembled on site for a much quicker, efficient, less labor intensive way of building. So I think those two definitely. And then, if you have a chance to invest in a model home, that's also a great investment because when you think about builders building those model homes that you go to see and it's beautifully decorated, it's got all the bells and whistles, all the things in them. They're very well maintained because obviously they want to show off how beautiful their home is. And so typically what the home builders will do is they will sell the model home and then they will pay you a lease back as long as they're selling out of that model home. So it's a great cash flow opportunity because, the builder is paying you right away. It's a cash producing asset right away. And then once it's done, typically the value of that model home appreciates even further because, when you start community to when you finish the community, you usually raise the price along the way. So now you can turn around and sell that asset for more money. So I'd say that's also a great opportunity. Those are my top picks.
I completely agree. I think I'm waiting for the day where 3D printed tech slash factory built manufactured homes can build custom single homes instead of these bulk, massive construction projects. Because I'd love to be a customer of that. And model homes, I know a friend who's been investing in them since a while. The returns are amazing. And if you ever come across a model home pitch, I'd love to learn about that. Anya, what does your own personal portfolio look like? What percentage of our portfolio is in real estate?
So again, I am boring because I am very much believe in diversification. Obviously the biggest chunk of my real estate portfolio is going to be, not real estate specific, is going to be Anewgo equity. Outside of that, it is all in index funds. So again, diversify, diversify, diversify. That's my motto.
Absolutely. Last question, Anya. You are a wife, you have two boys who are twins, almost 13, your daughter who's 4. If your loved one agree to be mentored by you, what's the number one skill you would teach them?
So I think I think about this question a lot, especially now with AI on the scene. I just think about my boys and what do I tell them? That is a question that I think about a lot, because a few years ago I would have thought absolutely you have to go to college, maybe study programming, computer coding, but now who needs computer coding when you have AI? So it's kind of, so as I'm thinking, as AI is going to evolve more and more over the next few years, like what skills are going to be the most valuable? I think one of the things that is going to be super valuable no matter what is going to be ability to maintain personal relationships. And so that's why hopefully I won't go out of business, as my strong suit is my personal relationships in this industry. So I would say forging those relationships. And then also adaptability. You got to be hungry to learn new skills. You cannot sit still and just think just because you went to school for something, now you're set. I am constantly learning. And so I would say those two things are probably going to be AI safe, right? It's going to do everything else for us, but hopefully it's not going to replace personal relationships anytime soon and your ability to learn and improve your own skill set.
AI is coming to change the world, but building deep personal relationships and constantly adapting yourself is always going to be human. That was Anya Chrisanthon, a Khaleesi who is on her way to capture the world of marketing and new construction. She knows more about technology and marketing and new construction than most people you ever met. If you want to be felt like the number one client with all your marketing needs solved by a single company, check out anewgo.com, or you can find them on LinkedIn. We'll add the link in the bio. Anya also runs a podcast called Anewgo of New Home Sales. If you want to be a guest, find a way to get in touch with Anya. This is Nick Shah. If you ever want to talk about real estate, shoot me a note on CEO. Thank you.
Hi, this is Anya Chrisanthon. I am the host of Anewgo of New Home Sales, and you're listening to Masters of Real Estate with Nick Shah.
Amazing.